Morrison.
Okay, willkommen. Wie geht's? Gut? That's all the German I know, right there.
Vielleicht kann er noch ein bisschen was lernen im Laufe der Show.
Okay, this is a very basic demonstration of how we draw the Simpsons characters. And the first thing I like to find out whenever I do a lesson like this is how many of you like to draw? Let's raise your hand. How many? Okay. How many of you hate drawing? You don't really want to draw to save your life. Okay, we have one, two, a couple of you. All right. Hopefully this won't be too boring for you. But do you want me to break and you can translate?
Sure.
Okay.
You start.
Okay. The first thing you need to know when drawing The Simpsons, and most students are sorry to hear this, but the first thing you need to know about is geometry.
Also das Erste, was man wissen muss, um richtig zeichnen zu können, ist leider Geometrie. Das mögen manche nicht hören, aber ist leider so.
Now, it's not as bad as you would think because geometry, as you probably know, is basically the study of different geometric shapes. So when we're drawing The Simpsons, we use all of the basic geometric shapes to build the character. And what I mean by that, well, I'll let you translate.
Also dabei geht es natürlich darum, die Grundformen erstmal zu zeichnen. Und beim Zeichnen von den Simpsons geht es eben genau darum, Grundformen erstmal aufs Papier zu bringen, um davon ausgehend weiterzumachen.
So at the signing that we're going to do after this, if you see me drawing the characters, normally I'm not able to do construction of the characters with geometric shapes, but I've taught myself how to draw just starting from point A and going to point B and C and all the way to the finish of the drawing. So you'll see me draw something like this. And as you noticed, I just did this all freehand. I didn't construct the character at all out of any kind of geometric shape. I just started drawing lines, and then eventually I ended up at the end with the final drawing. Now, when we're actually drawing the characters for comic books and for animation, we do it a little bit differently, which is the thing I'm going to demonstrate.
Also das wäre jetzt eine Herangehensweise, wie es nicht gemacht wird, einfach aus der Hand heraus die Zeichnung zu machen. Es wird eben genau anders gemacht, da wird eben erst eine Grundfigur aufgrund geometrischer Formen vorbereitet.
So, who can look at this drawing of Bart Simpson and tell me what's the basic geometric shape that is used to design Bart Simpson's head? What's that?
Ein
A
Kreis.
circle. Well,
Ein Kreis? Is it a circle?
that's part of it, because we have the circle right here, which actually, if you saw Bart Simpson in 3 dimensions, it would be a sphere. It would be a globe, not a flat circle, but a round ball.
Es ist ja eben weniger ein Kreis, denn man muss ihn sich ja räumlich vorstellen, also müsste man eher von einer Kugel ausgehen. Das wären zum Beispiel die Augen. Da haben wir jetzt eine etwas andere Form.
Can everyone see that?
Das ist halt eher ein Zylinder.
So that's a cylinder, correct. So if I was actually drawing for one of the comic book pages, this is how I would approach drawing Bart Simpson's head. Now his neck is also a cylinder.
Das gleiche gilt für den Hals.
And then here we have a globe or a sphere.
In die Mitte dann eben die Kugel und noch eine.
And then another one that's sort of tucked in behind the first one.
Und eine steht etwas hinter der anderen.
Now, if I divided this sphere into 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, right about at the line where I have the 3rd section beginning, that's where I put the top of Bart's nose.
Also, um das noch ein bisschen besser einzuteilen, teilt er eben die Kugel nochmal in unterschiedliche Abteilungen und nimmt die dann als Richtlinie dafür, wie er dann eben weitere Körperteile ansetzt.
And then if I draw sort of an imaginary line from the bottom of his nose back, I center his ear right on that line.
Dann,
Now, his ear is actually a disc. It's not a sphere because it's flat. It's not round like his eyeball is.
da muss man eben nochmal das sich ein bisschen anders plastisch vorstellen. Die Ohren sind natürlich ein bisschen flacher als die Augen und sind deshalb nicht so kugelig.
Okay. So now I have the basic construction, and then I start to fill in little details. Like Bart has a little bump on his lip, so I put that in. And then I decide, do I want him smiling? Do I want him frowning? What's the expression?
In dem Moment, wo erstmal die Basis geschaffen ist, kann man dann eben davon ausgehend sich überlegen, was für einen Gesichtsausdruck möchte ich denn jetzt eigentlich haben? Möchte ich, dass er lächelt? Möchte ich, dass er wütend ist? Da kommt dann eben der Mund ins Spiel mit der kleinen Vorderlippe. Das geht dann alles davon aus.
Now, in doing the teeth, the Simpsons have this weird thing where, they all have an overbite, so the top of their lip sticks out further than their lower jaw.
Muss man mal drauf achten, ist tatsächlich so, dass die Simpsons alle einen Überbiss haben.
So when I draw the teeth, I have to draw them in sort of a fanned out cone shape.
Das ist im Prinzip so eine Eistütenform. Und die Zähne werden eben nicht gerade runtergezogen, um die einzuzeichnen, sondern eben so ein bisschen schräger rein.
Okay, so I've got some basic details here. Now let me see. I want to give him a little eyebrow ridge there. And now we get to the hair. How many of you know how many points of hair Bart Simpson has on top of his head?
Kennt jemand die Haarspitzen? Hat die mal jemand gezählt von Bart Simpson? Da möchte jemand?
9? Correct.
9.
9 points of hair. Now you might say, why does it have to be 9? Why can't it be 10? Or how come not 8 or 11? Well, the reason is in animation, it has to be consistent. Because if you had, how animation works, where you have several drawings in sequence, and then you photograph them, and then they create the illusion of movement once they're all one after the other seen on film. So if, say, one drawing, Bart had 9 points of hair, and then in the next drawing he only had 8 points of hair, and then in the next drawing after that he had 10 points, when you see the final animation, his hair would be doing this. So it wouldn't be still, it would be fluttering. So that's why it's very important. So what we do is we sort of draw the 2 points on the end, and then one in the middle. So there's 3 points. And then we just have to put 3 more here, and then 3 more there.
Es ist ganz wichtig, dass Bart eben genau die gleiche Anzahl an Haarspitzen hat, sonst funktioniert das mit der Animation nicht. Die müssen alle immer genau die gleiche Zahl haben. Deshalb wird das eben von außen nach innen vorbereitet. Erst die äußeren, dann die Mitte und dann die fehlenden drumherum.
So now we put in some more little details, the pupils and the inner detail of his ear, which is sort of like a T shape, but it curves around the shape of the ear. Now, go ahead and translate that.
Das Öhrchen braucht natürlich auch eine kleine Form, da kommt dann immer so ein kleines T rein. Ja, und so werden eben die ganzen Details eingearbeitet, die dann die Grundform zu einem speziellen Charakter machen.
So when we do these drawings, we usually do them in a very light pencil or we do them in a blue pencil. And the reason for that is so that we can be nice and sketchy. We can have a lot of extra. See all these messy lines? These are all lines that are going to almost disappear when I put in the ink line over the top of it. So now I'm going to do that, and in that process, I start correcting things. If there's certain things I don't like about the initial drawing, at this point I can sort of make corrections. So I'm going to start here at the ear.
Jetzt kommt die Ausarbeitung. Also die Skizze immer in einer leichteren Farbe machen. Hier ist es ein hellblau, damit man eben die Möglichkeit hat, auszubessern und diese etwas unreine Zeichnung letztendlich genauer auszuarbeiten. Und das macht er jetzt eben genau hier.
So now I'm starting to make my lines much more precise.
Die Linien nehmen jetzt eben Form an, damit es eben diesen klaren Strich bekommt, den man eben vom Comiczeichnen her kennt. Ja, na klar. Und da haben wir eben jetzt genau die klare Form, die es am Ende haben soll. Und bei der Animation verschwinden dann eben diese kleinen Linien komplett.
So now you see all these messy lines don't really matter because you can still see them, but they're very faint. And then once we photograph the artwork, we can eliminate all those messy lines very easily. Or if you want, sometimes we'll put an overlay on the original drawing, and then we'll put it on a light box, and then we'll just ink it on the overlay, and then it's perfectly clean with no pencil lines. So this is one way of drawing, but it's imperfect, and this is the way you can really get a good solid drawing that looks like it's existing in real space, three-dimensionally, and it's a good, satisfying, solid drawing. This may look good on a comic book cover, but it's sort of what we call loopy-doodle. It's a little bit loose and funky.
Ja, also da sieht man eben schon genau den Unterschied, dass das eben was ist, das eben nicht so genau mit den Proportionen arbeitet und rechts haben wir eben eine richtig schöne, saubere Zeichnung, wie sie im Cartoon vorkommen soll.
Okay, so that's the cylinder. Let's find out what other shapes we can use. Let's go to Homer. Now Homer is mostly made of spheres. His head isn't cylindrical like Bart's is. It's obviously round on top. So with Homer, we start with a sphere.
Homer besteht eigentlich fast nur aus Kugeln. Beginnt er eben genau so, wie es gemacht wird, mit den geometrischen Formen am Anfang. Man sieht jetzt schon, es hat ein bisschen eine andere Form. Es ist nicht ganz eine Kugel, es ist eher so eine Art Daumen.
Now these other shapes that we have here are basically cone shapes that are cut off. So, you know, you have a cone shape. But if you look at Homer's chest, it's a cone shape that's been cut off about halfway through the middle. And then that's where his head starts, is out of there. Another thing we always think of Homer's head is kind of a thumb. So it's kind of round on top and it has a nice bend to it. Okay, so we place Homer's eye about 2/3 through the middle of the bottom of this circle. So you've got about 2/3 of the sphere above this line and about 1/3 of the sphere below that line.
Da werden eben genau die weiteren Formen ausgerichtet an den anderen Formen, an den Linien, die man sich gezogen hat zur Orientierung. Da wird eben jetzt in die Mitte der Kreis gesetzt.
Now, Homer's upper lip is also half of a sphere. I know when I say sphere, it sounds like a number, but it's,
Ja.
it's not. And then his chin, or the bottom part of his mouth, is a smaller sphere. So, you know, if I completed this, you would see a sphere here and you'd see another one here.
Alles eben arbeitet mit Halbkreisen oder abgeschnittenen Zylindern, abgeschnittenen, umgedrehten Eistüten. Und es ist eben immer wichtig, die Linien zu haben, an denen man sich dann ausrichten kann.
And then, of course, at the top, he's got 2 half circles.
Wieder die Halbkreise als die berühmten Haare.
And then he just has an M shape here over the top of his ear.
Und auf den Schläfen hat er im Prinzip nur dieses M.
So you can see here I drew even more roughly than the drawing of Bart, because I really encourage students to get very loose. You don't want to draw from here, from your wrist. You want to use your whole arm as much as possible. And that's the way you really get interesting, free-flowing drawings, because you're putting your whole arm into it. It's not just this tight little, you know, when you draw just from your wrist, you tend to get kind of uptight little drawings. And this is the way you get nice, loose, free-form drawings.
Also ruhig mit großzügiger Geste zeichnen oder malen, das gibt einfach freiere Formen, als sich ganz eng mit der Hand und mit dem Handgelenk zu bewegen.
So again, I'm going to start refining these lines with my ink.
Jetzt werden wieder die Linien genau definiert mit einem dunkleren Stift.
And I'm going to draw Homer's collar in now.
Jetzt kommt der Kragen.
His collar also has an M shape right at the front. And it's also basically a cylinder. It's a very flat cylinder, but it wraps all the way around the back of his head, back of his neck.
Auch wieder ein Zylinder.
There's your basic Homer construction. Now his body, one of the things that we like to do in teaching other animators or students how to draw these characters is think of sort of common household objects. So Homer's body is basically a light bulb. Not the modern light bulb that has the curly Q, but like the old-fashioned light bulb.
Also im Prinzip ist Homers Kopf ja eine Glühbirne, kann man sagen. So wie diese altmodischen Glühbirnen.
So if you imagine a light bulb like that, that's basically Homer's body.
Und das ist jetzt der Unterkörper von Homer.
So can everyone see that? Looks basically like a light bulb.
Sorry.
But then when I add the legs, also cylinders.
Und wieder haben wir die Zylinderform für die Beine.
And add the arms, which are basically tubes or curvy cylinders.
Dann haben wir wieder Röhren im Prinzip als Arme.
And then his fingers are sort of like sausages.
Und er hat Wurstfinger im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes.
And then when we draw Homer's feet, we sort of think of like an iron that you would iron your clothes with.
Bei den Füßen haben wir es mit einem Bügeleisen tatsächlich zu tun.
So that's the basic shape of Homer's feet, and then you put in the little detail of the heels.
Und auch da wieder Grundformen und Details.
So you can see how just thinking of that common household object helps you to visualize the construction of the characters in sort of just a simple way.
Also im Prinzip muss man sich ganz gewöhnliche Haushaltsgegenstände vorstellen, wie die Glühbirne oder das Bügeleisen. Und schon hat man im Prinzip den Körper von Homer zusammengestellt.
So how much time do we have left?
15 minutes.
Okay, so let's take some requests from the audience. Does anyone have a character they'd like me to draw, and then I'll try to explain the construction that goes into it? Mr. Burns.
Mr.
Okay.
Burns.
All right. So Mr. Burns, again,
Ups.
we start with a sphere.
Wieder eine Kugel.
And then we have sort of a pyramid shape
Dann kommt da noch so eine Art Pyramidenform dazu
and a cylinder.
und wieder der Zylinder.
Now, right about a little above halfway through the sphere, we want to establish his brow. He has a very severe brow.
Also
So we just sort of draw a line there, and then we put a couple of half spheres, half globes.
das dient jetzt dazu, die Augenbrauenpartie darzustellen. Mr. Burns hat ja eine ziemlich starke Augenbraue, böser Mann. Deshalb kommt die in die Mitte der Kugel und darunter dann eben die Halbkreise als Augen.
And then his hair is sort of a donut. It's like a donut shape wrapped around the back of his head.
Also ein Kringel, ein Donut quasi.
And then he's got little sideburns, and then his ear peeks out there behind the sideburns.
Und Koteletten braucht er natürlich auch.
And bags under the eyes.
Augenringe.
He's got very small, sharp kind of teeth.
Die kleinen scharfen Zähnchen.
And he's got 3 age spots on the top of his
Und
head.
3 Altersflecken auf der hohen Stirn, der sehr hohen Stirn.
And of course, Mr. Burns has sort of a hunched posture.
Naja, seine Haltung ist natürlich, wie wir es kennen, sehr gebückt.
So you notice the neck doesn't really come from the middle of the shoulders like it would with Homer or Bart or Marge. It sort of comes from the front because he's got this sort of hunched.
Man muss
Posture.
den Hals eben anders darstellen als bei Homer, um diese bucklige Statur zu zeigen.
Again, with the Simpsons, the arms are almost always tubes.
Wieder haben wir die Röhren als Arme. Und jetzt geht es wieder an die Reihenzeichnung.
I don't really know how to describe his nose in geometric terms, except that it's sort of a cone shape, but it's more of, it's like a tubular cone, if such a thing existed.
Es ist ein bisschen schwer, die geometrische Grundform von der Nase zu beschreiben. Es ist nicht ganz ein Kegel, es ist so eine Art Röhrenkegel, wenn man so will.
Now, I didn't sketch this out, but I've done this enough times that I don't really have to. But I'm going to add in his collar and details of his jacket.
Hat es jetzt nicht genau ausgearbeitet im Grundriss, aber er zieht das jetzt so nach.
That's kind of loose, but you get the idea. So that's basically Mr. Burns. One of the characters I have the heart. Yes, let's take some questions. No question? Does anyone have a question at this point? Any questions?
Irgendjemand irgendwelche Fragen? Ja. Her question is, also die Frage ist, wie werden die Figuren entwickelt? Wie kommt man auf die Ideen von solchen Figuren? How are these characters developed, basically? How do you do that?
Well, do you mean like the design of the character initially, or in general all the characters? Why are they designed the way they look?
Meinen Sie jetzt eher, wie die... es ist ja nicht seine Idee letztendlich. Also... she is like she thinks it's you designed.
Oh, okay. Well, Matt Groening, who's the creator of The Simpsons, does everyone know who Matt Groening is? Have you've heard of him? He created The Simpsons, and so this style, which is very strange, is based on a comic strip that Matt used to do, and a strip that he did before The Simpsons called Life in Hell. And Matt is a brilliant cartoonist and a brilliant artist, but his drawing is very what we call underground or avant-garde. It's very loose. And so when Matt would draw his Life in Hell characters, he had some of the main characters in the Life in Hell strip were rabbits. And
Es geht,
so
jetzt,
one of the rabbits was named Binky.
es geht jetzt um die ersten Cartoons, die Matt Groening gemacht hat. Der hat einen eher gröberen Stil gehabt und das hieß Life in Hell, bevor er mit den Simpsons angefangen hat. Und da waren das eben eher Häschen, wie man jetzt sieht. Und die sahen jetzt ungefähr so aus. Und wenn man die alten Simpsons-Folgen noch kennt, dann wird man feststellen, dass die auch sehr viel gröber waren, als wir es jetzt kennen. Nicht so rund und gemütlich sozusagen.
So this is sort of what Matt Groening's original drawing style looked like. So when he came up with The Simpsons, some of the early drawings of The Simpsons were just based on this very loose style. And so he would draw Bart like this. This is basically Matt Groening drawing Bart. That's really bad, but Matt would just kind of draw very loose and funny, and the characters were very crude. So if you look at the very early Simpsons episodes, the really short ones that appeared first on a show called The Tracy Ullman Show, this is kind of what they looked like. They were very organic. They weren't really based on geometry like we're talking about here. However, when it became a primetime half-hour TV show, they started employing a lot of other animators to work on the show. And so they all needed to be able to draw the characters in a quick way and also in a way that was all uniform. So then at that point, the animators developed this more formal geometric way of designing the characters. But the thing that remained was the overbite on the lip, and then the big bulgy eyeballs. That sort of was what they decided. That's the essence of the Matt Groening style.
Im Prinzip, um eine Vorabendserie daraus zu machen, wurde eben aus diesem etwas gröberen Stil eine etwas rundere Geschichte, die eben, um das eben effektiver zu machen, auf diesen geometrischen Formen basiert. Und geblieben ist eben ja, der Überbiss und die Glubschaugen, die eben bis heute noch dabei sind.
For example, if you notice Bart's hair, when Matt would draw it, it was just kind of a scribble, just a squiggle of, it looks like a graph, or mountains. It's just very loose and organic. But that doesn't really work in animation. You really have to have that formalized, like I talked about earlier. It has to be very set in the way it's designed. So all of these refinements took place when it became a primetime TV show.
Sowas geht eben natürlich nicht für die Animation in einer TV-Vorabendserie. Das muss eben, wie vorhin schon erklärt, eben eine bestimmte genaue Anzahl an Haarspitzen sein. Und da war das eben eher so eine Skizze von Haaren. Ich kann dich leider gar nicht mehr dran nehmen. Wir sind jetzt nämlich leider mit unserer Zeit am Ende. Aber es gibt jetzt die Möglichkeit, sich von Bill Morrison sich was signieren zu lassen und selber was zeichnen zu lassen. Also wir haben dafür was vorbereitet an Zahlen, Nummern, die man ziehen kann.
Also ich verteile hier jetzt die Tickets, wie vorhin schon angekündigt. Es geht nur mit irgendeinem Simpsons-Comic oder Buch oder mit Sketchbook. Weiße Zettel signieren wir nicht. Ich verteile die jetzt und dann gehen wir rüber zu Stand 8, also darüber dann.
One thing I would like to add is all of the stuff that you saw me doing and much, much more, we actually did a book. And what's the name of the book in
How to
German?
Draw the Simpsons heißt es im
Ja.
Original. Ist der Simpsons-Zeichkurs. Haben wir bei uns am Stand, kommt einfach vorbei. Und wir haben es auch hier im Comic-Shop zu kaufen.
Right. So if you want to see more of that, buy the book. Yes.